Welcome to Unhurried Minds, a quiet space for gentle stories, slow understanding, and unhurried reflection. Here, there is nothing you need to improve, nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to move past. You have not arrived here to become better. You have arrived here to become less guarded. Before we begin tonight's exploration, allow yourself to settle into the place where you are listening. Let the body be supported by whatever is holding it right now: a chair, a bed, the floor beneath your feet. Notice how support does not ask anything of you. It does not require effort. It does not measure worth. It simply holds. Let your weight rest into that holding. If the body adjusts, let it adjust. If it remains still, let it remain still. There is no correct posture for listening. Now notice the breath, not as a technique, not as something to regulate, but as evidence that something in you is already working without instruction. Air moves in, air moves out. You do not supervise this. You do not evaluate it. Breathing happens, whether you approve of it or not. That quiet, automatic continuation is important, because tonight's exploration is not about teaching the mind to be kind. It is about remembering that kindness already exists, in the same way breathing does. As a baseline function, that becomes noticeable only when something stops interfering with it. This episode is about self-kindness, not as a moral virtue, not as positive thinking, not as something to practice, repeat, or perform, but as a psychological state, a state the nervous system recognizes as safe enough. Many people believe they are unkind to themselves because they lack discipline or patience or emotional maturity. Psychology suggests something quieter and far more compassionate. Self-kindness does not vanish. It becomes inaccessible. When the mind believes that constant self-monitoring is required to survive, when the nervous system perceives threat, whether social, emotional, or imagined, it narrows attention, it sharpens judgment, it increases internal commentary. This is not cruelty, it is protection. The problem is not that the mind learned this response. The problem is that modern life rarely signals when protection is no longer necessary. So the inner voice stays sharp, watchful, alert, and over time that vigilance begins to sound personal. Tonight, we will not try to silence that voice. We will not argue with it. We will not attempt to replace it with kinder language. Instead, we will explore why it appeared, what keeps it active, and what naturally happens. When the system no longer needs it, there will be no exercises, no affirmations, no moments where you are asked to do something differently. Understanding alone often changes the nervous system more reliably than effort ever could. If your attention drifts, that is expected. If your mind wanders, that is not failure. If sleep arrives at any point, it is welcome. Self-kindness does not require consciousness to continue. It only requires that pressure softens. Chapter 1: The Misunderstanding of Self-Kindness. Self-kindness is often misunderstood because it is almost always described from the outside. It is presented as advice, as encouragement, as something a person should add to their behavior. Be kinder to yourself. Go easier on yourself. Stop being so hard on yourself. But psychology tells a different story. Self-kindness is not something a healthy mind does. It is something a regulated mind defaults to. In other words, self-kindness is not a skill. It is a condition. It emerges when the nervous system is no longer oriented toward threat. To understand this, it helps to understand what the mind evolved to do. For most of human history, self-evaluation served a clear purpose. Mistakes could be fatal. Social exclusion could mean death. Attention to error was a form of survival. The inner voice that noticed flaws was not designed to be gentle. It was designed to be fast. It replayed events. It anticipated outcomes. It searched for what went wrong. This voice helped humans adapt, but it was never meant to speak without interruption. Modern environments removed many physical threats, but replaced them with constant psychological evaluation, performance, comparison, visibility, Expectation. The nervous system does not distinguish well between physical danger and perceived judgment, so the same protective voice remains active. Over time, this vigilance becomes familiar, and familiarity is mistaken for identity. People begin to say, "I am hard on myself. I don't know how to be kind to myself. I must be wired this way." But from a psychological perspective, this is not wiring. It is activation. When self-criticism is present, the body is not neutral. Heart rate subtly increases. Muscles hold tension. Breathing becomes shallow. The system is preparing, not for reflection, but for defense. Self-kindness does not coexist with this state, not because kindness is weak, but because kindness is unnecessary. When danger is perceived, this is why attempts to think kinder thoughts often fail. The mind does not accept reassurance. While it believes vigilance is required, it is like asking a guard to relax, while the alarm is still sounding. Self-kindness returns only when the alarm quiets. This reframes the problem entirely. The question is not, how do I become kinder to myself? The more accurate question is, what does my nervous system still believe it needs to protect me from? As we continue, we will explore this protection more deeply, not to remove it, but to understand it well enough that it no longer needs to dominate. Kindness does not need to be summoned. It appears when the system feels safe enough to rest. Chapter 2. The inner critic as a safety mechanism. The inner critic is rarely understood for what it actually is. It is often described as a flaw, a habit to break, a voice to silence, an internal enemy to overcome. But psychology offers a quieter and far more accurate interpretation. The inner critic is not an antagonist. It is a protective system that stayed active beyond the conditions that originally required it. To understand this, it helps to let go of the idea that the mind is designed for happiness. The mind is designed for survival. From an evolutionary perspective, internal criticism functioned as a form of rehearsal. It reviewed mistakes. It imagined negative outcomes. It scanned for social missteps. These processes increase the likelihood of avoiding danger in the future. In early human groups, being expelled from the social unit could be fatal. So the mind learned to monitor behavior closely. Did I offend? Did I misjudge? Did I fail to contribute? This internal monitoring was not gentle. It was urgent. Urgency mattered. What did not matter was comfort. This distinction is important. The inner critic evolved to prioritize safety, not emotional well-being. In modern life, the threats have changed, but the system has not. Social danger no longer means exile or starvation, yet the nervous system still reacts to judgment, comparison, and failure, as if survival were at stake. A performance review, a social interaction replayed in memory, an unreturned message, a perceived mistake. Each can activate the same circuitry that once responded to physical threat. When this happens, the inner critic becomes louder, not because something is wrong with you, but because the mind believes something must be prevented. This is why the inner critic is often strongest in people who care deeply, high responsibility, high empathy, high self-awareness. These traits amplify monitoring. From the outside, it can look like self-cruelty. From the inside, it feels like vigilance. And vigilance, once activated, is difficult to turn off deliberately. This is where many people struggle. They attempt to reason with the critic, to counter it, to replace it with affirmations, but the inner critic does not operate at the level of logic. It operates at the level of threat detection. When threat is perceived, the mind narrows, language becomes sharp, judgment accelerates, certainty replaces nuance. This is not a failure of insight, it is a shift in state. In this state, the nervous system prioritizes speed over softness. That is why self-kindness often feels inaccessible precisely when it is most needed. The system is not withholding kindness, it is reallocating resources. Understanding this changes how we relate to the inner critic. Instead of asking, how do I stop this voice? a more useful question becomes, what does this voice believe it is protecting me from? Often the answer is not danger itself, but uncertainty. Uncertainty about belonging, uncertainty about adequacy, uncertainty about the future. The inner critic attempts to resolve uncertainty. By tightening control, it reviews the past, it predicts the worst, it insists on improvement. These behaviors create the illusion of control, which briefly soothes the system, but control is not the same as safety. Control exhausts. Over time, constant internal monitoring keeps the nervous system in a low-grade state of alert. This makes rest difficult. It makes softness feel undeserved. It makes kindness seem naive. Not because kindness is dangerous, but because vigilance has become familiar. Familiarity, again, is mistaken for truth. The goal is not to eliminate the inner critic. It cannot be erased because it was never a mistake. The goal is to recognize that its presence signals activation, not accuracy. When the critic is loud, it does not mean you are failing. It means the system is scanning. As we move forward, we will explore what happens when the nervous system begins to receive signals of safety, signals strong enough that vigilance no longer feels necessary. When that happens, the inner critic does not need to be silenced. It naturally quiets, and in that quiet, self-kindness does not arrive as an effort or a practice. It returns as a default. Chapter 3. What the brain does when it feels safe. Safety is not an emotion. This is one of the most important distinctions psychology makes, and one of the least commonly understood. Safety is a state. It is the condition in which the nervous system no longer prioritizes prediction, defense, or rapid correction. When the brain feels safe, it does not celebrate. It does not announce relief. It simply widens. Attention becomes less narrow, thoughts slow, breathing deepens without instruction. The mind stops scanning for what might go wrong next. This widening is subtle. So subtle that many people miss it entirely. Because we are taught to recognize intensity, not absence. The absence of threat does not feel dramatic, and it feels ordinary. And because it feels ordinary, it is often overlooked. Neuroscience describes this shift as a transition from protective mode to regulatory mode. In protective mode, the brain prioritizes speed, certainty, and vigilance. In regulatory mode, it prioritizes integration. Memory becomes more flexible. Emotion becomes less urgent. Self-referential thinking softens. This is the state in which self-kindness naturally appears. Not because the brain has decided to be nicer, but because harshness is no longer useful. When the nervous system senses safety, it reallocates energy. Resources previously devoted to monitoring are redirected toward maintenance, repair, connection, reflection. This is why people often describe unexpected tenderness after moments of deep rest, or why kindness toward oneself sometimes appears late at night or after illness or following emotional release, not because insight suddenly improved, but because the system finally stood down. Safety allows the brain to stop asking, "What must I fix?" and begin asking quietly, implicitly, "What can be held?" This shift also changes how the mind relates to the self. In threat states, the self is treated as a project, something to refine, to improve, to monitor closely. In safe states, the self is treated as a given. Not perfect, not complete, but not under immediate review. This distinction matters because self-kindness is not something the brain applies to a project. It is something it extends to something already accepted as present. When safety is established, the internal tone changes. Language becomes less evaluative. Thoughts carry more nuance. Silence becomes tolerable. Even boredom, often avoided, becomes restful. From the outside, this can look like passivity. But psychologically, it is a sign of trust. Trust that nothing urgent is being missed. Trust that vigilance is not required in this moment. Modern life interferes with this state constantly. Notifications, deadlines, and comparison Each reactivates monitoring, so the brain oscillates, brief moments of safety, interrupted by renewed alertness. This is why self-kindness often feels fleeting. It appears, then disappears, not because it is fragile, but because safety was interrupted. Understanding this removes a great deal of self-blame. If kindness fades, it does not mean you lost it. It means the system returned to scanning. And scanning is not wrong. It is simply incompatible with gentleness. As this exploration continues, we will widen our lens further, beyond individual nervous systems, to the cultural messages that keep vigilance active long after danger has passed. Self-kindness does not exist in isolation. It is shaped, constrained, and sometimes delayed by the stories we inherit about worth, effort, and rest. That is where we turn next. Chapter 4. Cultural stories about worth and effort. Even when the nervous system begins to soften, self-kindness can still feel unfamiliar. Not because safety is absent, but because permission is. Human minds do not develop in isolation. They develop inside stories. Stories about effort, stories about value, stories about what it means to deserve rest. Many of the cultures that shape modern life carry a quiet assumption worth must be demonstrated. Effort proves value, struggle signals commitment, rest must be justified. These ideas are rarely stated outright. They are absorbed slowly through repetition, in school systems that reward endurance, in workplaces that praise exhaustion, in social admiration for productivity over presence. Over time, these narratives become internalized. The nervous system learns that vigilance is not only protective, it is expected. This is why self-kindness is often mistaken for indulgence, why softness feels suspicious, why rest triggers guilt. The mind is not reacting to danger, it is reacting to deviation. Deviation from the story it was taught. Psychologically, this creates a conflict. The body may feel safe, but the narrative does not allow safety to linger. So the system reactivates effort. Internal pressure returns, not because something is wrong, but because stillness violates expectation. This is particularly evident in moments of unstructured time, weekends, holidays, evenings without obligation. Rather than relief, many people feel unease. A subtle question arises: what should I be doing right now? This question does not come from need. It comes from conditioning. Cultures that equate worth with effort train the mind to remain alert, even in the absence of threat. From a psychological perspective, this is a form of learned vigilance. It is socially reinforced. Praise is given for perseverance, not for balance. Recognition follows output, not restoration. Over time, the nervous system learns that safety alone is insufficient. Safety must be earned. Self-kindness, in this context, it becomes conditional, allowed only after productivity, permitted only after fatigue. This explains why many people can extend kindness to themselves. Only when they are ill, exhausted, or overwhelmed. The body must force rest before the mind allows it. But self-kindness does not require collapse. It requires a different story. A story in which rest is not a reward, but a rhythm. A story in which effort is meaningful but not constant. A story in which worth is assumed, not negotiated. Psychology shows that narratives shape regulation. When effort is glorified, the nervous system stays activated. When rest is normalized, the system learns to settle. Neither story is neutral. One sustains vigilance, the other allows recovery. Self-kindness emerges where recovery is permitted. This does not mean rejecting effort, ambition, or care. It means recognizing that relentless striving is not the same as engagement, and that the mind does not become gentle through instruction, but through context. As we move toward the final chapters, we will look at what gently signals safety to a nervous system shaped by effort, not through technique, but through quiet cues, small human signals that tell the mind, for now, nothing is required. Chapter 5. Gentle rituals that signal safety. The nervous system does not respond primarily to language. It responds to signals, temperature, light, rhythm. predictability. These signals communicate safety long before the mind interprets them. This is why self-kindness often returns. Not during moments of insight, but during moments of quiet repetition. A familiar cup held in the hands, a consistent place to sit, a routine that requires no decision. These are not habits in the productivity sense. They are rituals of regulation. They tell the nervous system nothing new is demanded here. In early human life, ritual was a survival tool. Shared rhythms reduced uncertainty. Predictable patterns allowed rest. Even today, the brain associates repetition with safety, not because repetition is efficient, but because it is known. Gentle rituals do not attempt to change the self. They stabilize the environment, so the self can soften. This is an important distinction. Many modern approaches to self-care frame rituals as optimization, morning routines, evening wind downs, scheduled calm. But when rituals become goals, they reactivate effort. True regulatory rituals are not measured, they are felt. They do not improve outcomes, they reduce vigilance. A soft light turned on at the same hour. A sound that marks transition. A pause that arrives reliably. These cues accumulate. Over time, the nervous system begins to anticipate rest. Without negotiation, self-kindness then appears, not as something practiced, but as something assumed. The body learns that this moment does not require defense. Importantly, rituals work even when belief does not. You do not have to think they matter. The nervous system responds, regardless of interpretation. This is why people often feel calmer in familiar spaces, even if they cannot explain why. Why certain environments invite gentleness automatically, why self-criticism quiets in places that feel held. Rituals create that holding. They reduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is what vigilance feeds on. When uncertainty decreases, the inner critic loosens its grip, not because it was defeated, but because it is no longer needed. This is also why abrupt change can temporarily disrupt self-kindness. New environments, new schedules, new expectations, even positive change can reactivate monitoring. The solution is not to resist change, but to carry anchors with you. Small, repeatable cues that signal continuity. A phrase spoken softly, a posture, a familiar sensory detail. These anchors are not techniques. They are reminders of safety. As this exploration comes toward its close, we will step back and look at what happens when self-kindness is no longer pursued at all, when it is not practiced, not measured, not sought, but simply allowed to return. Chapter 6. When kindness returns on its own, self-kindness is often imagined as something that arrives because it was finally earned, after effort, after understanding, after improvement. But psychology suggests something much quieter. Self-kindness returns when it is no longer being pursued, when the nervous system stops asking how to be better and begins to accept what is already present. This is not resignation. It is resolution, not the kind that announces change, but the kind that settles. When vigilance relaxes, the mind does not rush to fill the space. It rests. In that rest, the internal tone shifts. Language softens. Judgment loses urgency. Silence becomes less threatening. This is not a dramatic transformation. There is no revelation. Often the first sign of returning kindness is simply neutrality, the absence of attack. And neutrality, for a nervous system accustomed to scrutiny, is a profound relief. From there, small warmth appears, a thought that does not escalate, a memory that passes without commentary, a moment that does not require evaluation. These are signs of regulation, not achievement. Self-kindness does not announce itself with affirmations. It appears as a lack of resistance. The body loosens slightly. The breath lengthens naturally. The mind stops rehearsing. Nothing has been fixed. Nothing has been resolved. But something has been allowed. Importantly, self-kindness is not permanent. It is contextual. It comes and goes with perceived safety. This does not make it fragile. It makes it responsive. When pressure returns, kindness may recede. This is not failure, and it is information. It signals that vigilance has been reactivated, and vigilance again is not wrong. It is simply incompatible with gentleness. Understanding this removes the final layer of self-judgment. You do not lose kindness. Because you are inadequate, you lose access to it. Because the system is protecting, and protection once no longer needed naturally releases, there is nothing you must do. To hold on to kindness, it cannot be gripped. It arrives when the grip loosens. As this episode comes to rest, there is no instruction to carry forward, no intention to set, no version of yourself to imagine. If kindness appears, let it be there. If it does not, that too is acceptable. The nervous system knows how to return when it is ready. Rest is not something you earn. Gentleness is not something you perform. They are states. The mind remembers when it is allowed to stop searching, and now you are free. To stop searching, there is nothing left to understand, only something to settle into. If sleep arrives, you may follow it. If wakefulness remains, let it be unhurried. This moment requires nothing of you. You have already arrived. Chapter 7. Self-kindness and the passage of time. Self-kindness is often imagined as something that should be felt now, a state to arrive at, a mindset to hold, a tone to maintain. But the mind does not work that way. Psychologically, self-kindness is not anchored to the present moment alone. It is deeply shaped by the way the mind experiences time. When the nervous system is under threat, time collapses. The past is replayed, the future is anticipated. The present becomes narrow and urgent. Mistakes feel permanent, outcomes feel imminent. There is little space between moments. In this compressed experience of time, self-kindness feels impossible. There is no room for it. The mind is too busy preventing what might happen next. But when safety increases, time begins to expand. Not objectively, but subjectively. Moments feel less pressured. Thoughts slow, the distance between events grows. This expansion is subtle, but it matters, because self-kindness requires temporal space. It requires the sense that nothing needs to be resolved immediately, that life is not closing in, that there will be another moment after this one. Psychology refers to this as temporal flexibility, the ability to move gently between past, present, and future without becoming trapped in any one of them. In this state, the mind can revisit memories. Without self-attack, it can imagine the future. Without panic, it can remain in the present, without pressure to optimize it. Self-kindness lives here, not in perfection, but in continuity. This is why people often experience greater softness toward themselves later in life, not because they have improved, but because time has stretched. Urgency has loosened. The nervous system has learned, through repetition, that most moments pass. Without catastrophe, this learning cannot be rushed. It is not cognitive, it is embodied. Self-kindness grows as the system learns that it survives again and again. When viewed this way, self-kindness is not a personality trait. It is the nervous system's memory of endurance, of having made it through. Without constant self-correction, this reframes patience. You are not waiting to become kinder. Your system is learning time, learning that moments end, that pressure recedes, that vigilance is not always required. Each experience of rest, even brief, adds to this learning. Each moment of neutrality adds weight to safety. Kindness does not rush ahead of this process, and it follows it. As this chapter closes, there is no need to assess where you are in time, whether you feel soft or guarded, whether gentleness is present or absent. Time is already moving. The system is already learning. Nothing is behind. As this exploration comes to rest, there is no instruction to carry forward, no habit to form, no insight to apply, no version of yourself waiting on the other side of understanding. What you have listened to does not require action. It is not something to hold on to. Psychological understanding does not work that way. It settles quietly, often beneath awareness. Later, perhaps without noticing, you may find a moment where the inner tone is softer, or where criticism pauses, or where nothing needs to be said at all. You do not need to recognize this. When it happens, the nervous system does not require acknowledgement. It only requires that pressure eases. If this episode has created even a small sense of space, that is enough. If it has not, that is also enough. Self-kindness does not respond to demand. It responds to permission. And permission cannot be forced. It arrives when the search ends. Now that there is nothing left to search for, the mind may drift, sleep may come, or awareness may remain quietly present. All of these are acceptable outcomes. Nothing further is required. You may rest in whatever state arrives next. The system knows how to continue on its own. You are not late. You are not missing anything. This moment is complete as it is.